So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. Till says I have like another 8 seconds. But welcome to What's New in Drupal 7 Theming. I'm really, really excited to actually present this. We've been working hard for 2.5 years or something like that on Drupal 7. And some of the things that are new in theming and design are just they get me really excited. I'm happy about them. And when you actually start using Drupal 7, you're going to start thinking about Drupal 6 theming the way you thought about Drupal 5 theming now. You know, it's just sort of a big change. So who am I? I'm John Albin. My last name's actually Wilkins, but everybody knows me as John Albin. That's my nick. I'm on Twitter. And I just found out yesterday that me and 19 other people wrote like half of Drupal 7, which was a bit shocking. And one of the things that you'll learn about the community if you haven't really been involved in the community a lot is that you can approach anybody. I've been involved in the community for about 5 years, and up until maybe 2 days ago, I always got a little bit nervous talking to Dries. But like today, I finally sort of was okay with like him coming and sitting down at lunch and eating with us, and everybody's is really approachable. Ask anybody questions that you have. Come talk to me anytime the rest of Drupalcon is totally cool. I want to talk to you about what you want to talk about. So the first thing we're going to talk about is what's similar in Drupal 7, which is not particularly exciting when I just told you that I'm going to be talking about what's new in Drupal 7. But the good news is it's not a complete revamp of the system. Theme functions, templates, preprocessed functions are all there. If you've done Drupal 6 theming, these concepts have not changed very much. They're basically the same, so don't freak out about that. And some other things that are similar, if you've done theming of CCK, we now have fields in core. This, from a sort of CSS standpoint, is not really a change, because we've been using CCK, we've been using views and everything in Drupal 6 for a while now. But if you're doing contrib themes and themes that you want to contribute back to the community and put, on Drupal.org for download, this is huge, because now you can sort of rely on fields that are going to be in everybody's Drupal install, and you can sort of style them and override them and not expect, and things will just work. And in particular, we now have image fields. Actually, you know what I'm going to point out? Quick sketch right here. He put in a hell of a lot of work in order to get images. Yeah, a lot of work. And then Jen Simmons actually went and then took that work and said, hey, you know what? We should actually be using this like on a particular content type, the article type in D7, and she went and wrote a patch, and we actually are using images. Because before we just had them in core, and now we're using them in core. So in image styles, if you use D6's image cache, is now called image styles. Again, Quick Sketch was doing all that work. And these are just fantastic things that you're going to get to learn more about. I'm just sort of talking about these things are core changes that you could research more about, and I'm not going to talk much really about them. I just sort of mention them real fast here. So what are some other things? Core themes. Hold a second. Let me. In Drupal 6, of course, I did a little survey, and basically 75% of core themes were themes that suck. And the other 25% were Garland. So in D7, we completely revamped that. crappy themes, be gone. We looked at this as sort of a usability issue, and also just they made us look bad. People were downloading Drupal and they were seeing shit, you know. And we fixed that, and now what we have in D7 at this point is Garland, which is still the default theme, 7 theme, and Stark theme. So 7 theme is our default admin theme, and you'll see that in a minute here when I start going through some screens. It's a beautiful admin-specific theme, so when you go into the admin side, it has a nice, clean interface, and it has also sort of nice separation as far as the way people think about, okay, I'm looking at the site, and now I've gone into the 7th theme with this different style, and I'm editing stuff. So it makes it sort of conceptually easier for people to realize that they've gone from just viewing to sort of editing the site. And then last, we have the Stark theme. The Stark theme I'm going to talk about in about 3 more slides. But it's basically, as its sort of name suggests, it's a null theme. The only thing it has in it is an info file that says, hey, I'm the Stark theme, and a layout.css file which like puts the sidebars on the side. And that's it. And the reason for it is just to sort of expose Drupal's default markup. So, what else? We now have the appearance page. And this is where I'm going to actually I'm going to jump out of my slides here and actually show you a D7 site, because otherwise this session would totally blow. So this is the D7 site that I put together earlier today with some sort of dummy text. You can see some of this random dummy images that's added here. And the administration of D7 is done through this sort of new, what's this called again? The admin bar? It's the black thing along the top that's really cool. And one of those, you know, basically, before you would go to the admin page, /admin, and there would be this giant page with all these links on the left and right side. And now we've replaced that with this sort of simpler, all of the sort of top-level items of the administration are along here. So, you know, modules and configuration of the different modules, and users, which is now called people, and this structures where you would like edit your content types and stuff like that. And we have the appearance page. This is a replacement for the really, really awful admin/build/themes page we had in D6, which was this giant table with a double row of not checkboxes, radio buttons, which were completely confusing on which radio button you were supposed to do in order to get your site to look the way you wanted it to look like. And it was just awful. And we've replaced it with the appearance page. So, as you can see, no more giant table. You just literally have a list of the enabled themes at the top here with nice big screenshots. Although this isn't a screenshot, but that's just because this is the sub-theme that I created for this demo. But here is a screenshot of the 7th theme, and then a sort of list of all your disabled themes. We have Bartik here. We have some other themes here, Garland, and these are all sort of these are the crappy themes in D6. They're going to be moved to contrib space, so you can download them if you really, you know, feel like punishing yourself. So I've downloaded them, but they don't come with core anymore. So sorry, I didn't mean to frighten you. What you do here is basically you see a theme that you want to use, and you see the description, and there's a picture of it, and you say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna enable it. You just click that button, and now it's sort of listed amongst your enabled themes, and the screenshot has now gotten a lot bigger. And if you want to make it the default, you can sort of just click on that set default button, the link, and And I'll go ahead and do that. Boom, it's the default theme, and you can see very clearly in bold, this is the default theme. There's no more confusion about what's going on. I'm going to go back and set this to the default for the rest of my demo. But this is the appearance page, and again, you still have your settings page, which you can sort of add stuff to it, of course, as always, and it's just a much nicer. Well, here we go, back to the list. A much nicer thing. And I should actually say one other thing, I forgot to put this on my slides, is you can install new themes directly from this link here. So if you click on that, you can sort of copy and paste a URL from Drupal.org into there, and it'll actually sort of upload it and make it available on your site. A lot easier than sort of uploading it to sites default themes or sites all themes or whatever you feel like putting it. So that's actually very nice. So let's go back to my slides. Yay. Okay, template cleanup. So how many people here have gone into D6 and gone into the modules system folder and looked for the page.tpl.php file? This is not the one that comes with your theme. This is the default one that is used if your theme doesn't have one. How many people have looked for that? I'm surprised there are that many people, because most people have never looked at it, and in fact, when I went to look at it, it is the most god-awful thing I've ever seen. There's a div in there with an ID of main squeeze. I don't know how this happened. It was some sort of horrible hybrid bastardization of Garland and something else, and that was the default markup for page TPL. This made no sense. So we went in and we literally just said, okay, we're going to clean up the page TPL and make it make sense as a sort of starting point. Now, mind you, 99% of the sites that I build, I have to customize the page TPL for whatever thing. But we tried to make it a nice starting point, right? The Zen theme has always sort of tried to do that, which I maintain. It's a nice starting point. We wanted to get cores templates to be a nice starting point. So we did a lot of work on those things. And included with that are sort of numerous name changes to some classes, some IDs. So you have primary and secondary menus became main menu and secondary menus. And that affects the IDs that then get displayed on those things when they're brought into your page TPL. The clear block class, this was kind of silly. I don't know why. This was an exact copy of the commonly known ClearFix class that's been around forever in the CSS community. And for whatever reason, when we put it into Decor, we called it the clear block class, which was super confusing and pointless. So we renamed it back to ClearFix. And then finally, left and right variables, which held your left and right sidebar. One of the things that we hadn't thought about when we did this was that it makes sense for probably almost everybody here, except for people who read in Arabic or Hebrew or some other languages that are right to left, because on those sites, by default, they would always flip their designs, horizontally. So for them, they'd be reading this way, and the left sidebar would be over here, and the right sidebar would be over here. This is not the right. That's not the left. And so he renamed it to be first and second. So now, when we're reading left to right, first and second, that makes sense. They're reading right to left, first and second. That makes sense. So that's why those names changes happened. What else has changed? So how many people have used PHP template underscore, theme function name? Okay. Are you doing that in D6? Or sorry, are you doing that now in D6 sites? How many people are using it right now in D6 sites? Okay, stop immediately. It turned out that that this worked great for us before Drupal 6. And unfortunately, with base themes and subthemes, this introduced a horrible, horrible, nasty, hard to figure out bug. For example, if your subtheme had a PHP template underscore preprocess page, and it was, you know, a subtheme of the Zen theme or a subtheme of whatever, right? Drupal would go in and go, okay, let's see. I'm going to do sort of this theme registry discovery where I figure out which functions go which themes, and which functions go with the base theme, which functions go with the subtheme, and I'm going to write it all down so that I know that when I, you know, am rendering this subtheme, I want to call all of the preprocess functions for the base theme, and then call all the preprocess functions for the subtheme. And unfortunately, because it's named PHP template underscore preprocess page, it has no clue which theme that function goes with. Even though it's in the template.php of a particular theme, it's loaded both of those template.php files into memory, and it suddenly doesn't know where they came from. And so it just goes, oh, I'll just render this twice. And you literally get this preprocess function that's prefixed with PHP template is run twice. And you end up with awful bugs if you are appending text to a particular string. It happens twice. And you only have it once anywhere in your code, and yet it's run twice. So stop doing it in D6, and we got rid of it in D7 because it was just bad. Classes and classes array variables. One of the things that a lot of themes, and Zen in particular likes doing, is giving you the ability to add extra classes, you know, to any whatever you want, right? D6 had this body classes variable, which was a string that you could like add stuff onto the end of that. And it was kind of a pain if you wanted to like remove something from that string, because then you had to learn like regex or, you know, some funky PHP function that does string searching and replacing, and it wasn't fun. So what we've done, we now have this classes array variable, which is available in the preprocess function, which if you want to add stuff to it, you add a new string at the end of the array. And so it's an array of like, you know, this class and this class and this class in this PHP array. And you can alter that in your theme, and then Drupal comes by at the end of all of the preprocess functions and takes that array and smushes it down for you into a single string with spaces in between. And it becomes the classes variable that you actually see in the TPL file. So if you look at the TPL files, a lot of them have like wrapper divs or some sort of container HTML element, and it'll have a little PHP statement there that says, you know, like div class equals quote, and then the PHP statement print $classes. And it's literally just printing a string there. But if you want to alter those classes inside your preprocess function, you need to alter the classes array variable, because it's easier to do stuff than just altering the classes string. I keep coming back over because I keep thinking of going to the next slide. I'm not. Silly me. Theme functions have preprocess functions. In D6, the only thing that had preprocess functions were templates. And all the module developers were like, we want to be able to alter the variables of these theme functions. And they did really crazy, mean things in their modules in order to get at the variables that were stuck in the theme functions. And so they came along and they said, you know what, we're going to add preprocess functions to theme functions. And so they did. And I have a huge typo in my slide on the next item here. Theme functions now only have they now only have one parameter. So like in D6, you would have a theme function like, God, I've been using D7 for a couple months now, and I've forgotten what they're like in D6. I'm going to go with theme links. Sure. You know what? I am going to go and look at some documentation. Oh, no, I'm not. This is D7 documentation. Crap. Actually, hold on. Okay. So this is perfect. Actually, this is better than I would have gotten a slide of. Fantastic. Okay, so in D6 there, you can see that in bold it says Drupal 5 through 6, theme links was this way. So theme links took an array of links and then another parameter which was attributes and stuff like that. In D7 theme function, every single theme function now only has one parameter, the variables parameter. And you'll see when you go to the documentation site, I'm going to click over to Drupal 7 here. The nice thing is it's actually going to describe what's included in the variables. So you see the same parameters that you're kind of used to, but they're part of this variables array instead. So you still have links, you still have attributes, got a couple extra things here. And the reason why they're included as a single variables parameter is because the module developers wanted to be able to alter the variables, and this was the only way we could do it. So since we have a single variables parameter, any preprocess function that you create, it doesn't have to be modules. Themes can, of course, do any preprocess functions. So now you can go in and add, you don't have to override theme links inside your theme if all you want to do is add a class. If all you want to do is add a class, you can go into this attributes array here and sort of add classes that way. And I'll have an example right here. Let's see. Is that it? Oh. Well, this is the classes array. I was supposed to show you that a minute ago. Let's finish what I was saying, though, first. Yeah, here we go. So this D7 is the name of this demo theme that I've created here. D7 preprocess links variables, and the attributes array it's literally this variable will be made into any sort of standard HTML attribute for an element. For example, if you add an item here with class, this will add an extra class to the wrapper for the links here that has class, and you could like add an ID if you wanted to. Any HTML attribute can be added into this attributes array, and it'll just sort of magically appear. Can I make it bigger? I can make it bigger. Very slowly. There we go. Is that better? But now I have to make it smaller. Over here. What else? All my slides start with what else, by the way. So we have more regions and less hard-coded page variables in our page TPO. So, for example, we used to have a help variable, a search box variable, a mission variable, a submitted variable, footer message. All of those variables are gone. Yeah. And the reason for a bunch of them the help, the search, the mission, and the footer message is because they're now blocks. You know, it didn't make a whole lot of sense that we had these sort of special configuration forms where you could define the content for these things, but then you also had the block system, and if you wanted to like wrap blocks around different parts of these hard-coded things, you had to do really funky, annoying things in order to have like a block in front of the footer message and a block underneath the footer message. And we're like, duh, why don't we just make these into blocks? So now any footer message that you have in D6, basically it gets, I believe it gets upgraded sort of automatically to a custom block. So now it's a custom block and it's stuck in your footer. Go edit there. You know, if you're creating a new D7 site, create a custom block and put your footer message in there. Holy crap, content is now a block. The main content of your page is a block. So one of the annoying things in D6, of course, was that if you wanted to have some blocks in front of your main content and some blocks underneath your main content, you had to create two separate regions, which was usually called like content top and content bottom. And for a while they were thinking about adding a content top and content bottom into D7, and then somebody was like, why don't we just make content a block? And we're like, okay. That's a good question. That's a good question, and I am going to pull up. Oh, sorry. The question was, where does status messages go now? I don't have the entire theme system memorized. I have a lot of it memorized. So let's go into the page TPL here, and I will zoom in a second as soon as I find what I'm looking for. Breadcrumb, yeah, no, it's still a hard-coded variable. So, yeah. Make it a block. Yeah, duh. Okay, we'll get it next time. Sorry. I'll zoom in again, but it's not really that exciting because it's exactly the way it is in D6. Whoa! There we go. Print messages. Yay. I mean, boo. Oh, and by the way, I'm totally cool with people asking questions anytime during the presentation. So thank you for the people who have already asked questions. I just showed this. Let's go to the next one. Template suggestions are dead. So, a lot of you are going, oh no, please tell me you didn't do that. I love template suggestions. They were my favorite. Yeah, except, you know, the problem was if you wanted to have a node-story.tpl in your theme, it wouldn't work. You would be like, wait, okay. Why isn't this working? And then you would eventually find the documentations that say, oops, sorry, we screwed up. You have to have the node TPL in your theme in addition to the node story.tpl. You would think, oh, we can just fix that. It's a bug in D6, and we'll fix it. And it turned out to be really, really, really hard. And we simply couldn't fix it. But the good news is that we replaced it with theme hook suggestions, which sound a hell of a lot like template suggestions, but they also work for theme functions. So let me give you an example. And in fact, I bet 90% of you have seen theme hook suggestions already. How many people here use views? So apparently this thing was actually already in D6. When Earl Miles rewrote the theme system and added templates into Drupal 6, he added this feature. And he's like, trust me, I need this for views. And everyone's like, oh, okay. Cool. But nobody knew what it was. Nobody was really paying attention. They saw these sort of double dash template names, and they're like, that's kind of weird, that's cool, but I don't know what it does. And it wasn't until like a couple months ago that we all sort of cottoned on and figured out what was going on, and we started using it in core. So let me give you an example of it. As I said, template suggestions only work for templates. Theme hook suggestions work for any kind of theme hook, whether it's a node.tpl or a theme function for the links theme hook. So here is an example of the theme links for the Bartik theme. If you were to add this to the Bartik theme, you would be overriding the style for every single time links are used anywhere in Drupal core and anywhere that links are used in any contrib module. Now this kind of blew. Actually, it blew a lot. I hated it. It just drove me nuts that I couldn't like override and style the themes. Sorry, style the links of just the node and have those links look different than like the comment links or something like that, right? But it was impossible in D6. It was really, really, really hard. And in fact, I usually didn't do it. I told you, you can't do that. I'm sorry. But in D7 now, we have this theme hook suggestion, which is in core, that says, if you have a Bartik underscore links underscore node function, I am going to allow you to override the styling for just the node links. Any other time that theme links is wanted to be used in the rest of the system, we're going to use the default whatever theme links function that's used. Or if you have a Bartik theme, Bartik links function as well. And this is super powerful. It gives you sort of context of what is the actual thing that I'm styling. And it's there. There aren't any themes or any sort of places in the module system. I don't think we actually do this anywhere, but we give you the ability to do this in your themes. And as I said, they work for theme functions and also for so you might recognize this. We just added an extra dash. So now instead of node dash story, it's node dash dash article.php because we once again sort of flip-flop and decide, well, articles don't really make, or sorry, stories don't make a sense. We'll rename it to article content type. So with this, you can override the styling just for the article node types, and you don't have to have a node TPL in your theme. Woohoo! So the question was, do I have to declare that with a theme hook suggestion? And I was about to explain, the next item here, is that no, actually for theme links you don't. Because there are two ways that you can get theme hook suggestions into the system. One is when the module has the data and says, hey, I'm gonna theme this now, it's going to give some suggestions right then. So like the node module says, okay, I'm about to print out the node links. We're going to use the links, unless you use the suggestion of node underscore links. So it provides suggestions right sort of at the calling time inside the module. Now, if you decide you don't like those suggestions and you want to use a different suggestion, if you can sort of figure out enough context from inside your pre-process function, you can add your own now. So there are two new variables that are available in any pre-process function. And again, pre-process functions for theme functions and for templates. And they are called theme hook suggestions, which is an array of suggestions. So if you want to provide like 5 or 6 suggestions, you can do that with this. And I'm going to have to double check the documentation. I think it's the first one in the array is the one that is most important. So if you happen to have 2 suggestions actually implemented in your theme, it'll sort of pick the first one that it hits. And then there's also this singular version of it, which is not an array. It's just a single string, which is theme hook suggestion. And this is sort of the simpler form, but it's more important than the array. So for example, here Node John Albin has a lot more importance than Node Morton. I love you, man. Yeah, I know you're going to get me tomorrow. I'm just glad you weren't here for my presentation yesterday. So, what else? jQuery UI is now in core. For you jQuery front-end developers, this is fantastic. I'm not actually a JavaScript person so much. We have other people at Palantir who do a lot of that stuff, and they're really excited about this. So I don't really have anything else to say about that, but yay! There's now an html.tpl.php file in D7. This one was a little bit controversial when it went in, but I argued against it for a long time until basically their arguments for it were enough to get it into D7. Basically, what html.tpl file is, it is a let me just show you. That'd be a lot easier. Again, I'll zoom. Not so much. Is that zoomed enough for most people? Who thinks it needs to be a little bit bigger? Okay, cool. So this is the html.tpl.php file. That's the default one for Drupal 7. And if you look at it here, all it is the doc type, our head, the body class, a skip to main content, which is an accessibility improvement in D7, which is really cool. And then we have a single variable, or well, there's only really one variable you care about, and that's the page variable. And this holds the content of what is now the page.tpl.php file, right? So we took these bits out of page.tpl and put them into the html.tpl.php, and the rest of it is in page.tpl, where you've always been doing stuff in D6. Now, this doesn't look like an improvement at all. I'm going to explain why this is an improvement in a little bit, but I wanted to show you that this is the way things are in D7. So granular theming. This is the reason why there's now an html.tpl PHP file. We have a whole new way to print out variables. In D6, all we did for all variables was in our, just like in this html.tpl file here, we're just PHP print and then the variable. That's all we did. There are some variables that have been converted into render elements. So they're not just plain strings at this point. They're these render elements, which are arrays with sort of hints inside them of how to theme the data that is also inside the array. Now, for the sort of the casual themer, it's going to take a lot of work for you to be able to get at that data and be able to really be able to use it. Except that we've added some helper functions. Page TPL. No. I want to hold on. Let me open up the Node TPL. That's the one with the awesome sauce. So here's the node TPL. And let's look at, what are we going to look at here? Let's look at, well, I guess we don't really have, yeah, just the one example here. Oh, no. Okay, here, near the top here. You can see there's this title suffix and title prefix variables here. Those are render elements. And if you ever tried or accidentally printed an array, what you'll find out is that PHP quite helpfully prints out the word array instead of any of the contents. We've added a helper function here called render, which you can wrap around here, wrap around the actual variable. So you call this function with the variable in it, and it actually goes in and converts this render element array into a string using all of the data and hints of styling that are inside the render element. Now, the render API is actually, it's a complex beast, but we've added some helper things into here to make things a lot easier. For example, if you look down here at the content variable, which has always had, you know, basically it was the content variable in D6 was if you had CCK installed, which of course you did, you had, you know, your body field and all of the fields sort of smushed together into one string, which, you know, if you wanted to like put one field in a different spot on your page, it made it really hard to do that kind of stuff. And there was an advanced option in CCK in Drupal 6. That's the exclude checkbox. How many people have used the exclude checkbox in the display options? Fantastic. Basically, what it would do is say, okay, you know what? I'm gonna render that field for you and make it available as one of the variables inside a preprocess function. But I'm not actually going to print it inside the content variable. It's not going to be included there anymore. And in D7, we have fields in core. There's no more exclude checkbox because we don't need it. We now have these hide function and these render functions, which do the same thing, but right inside the template file. So here, by default, we are the content variable includes all of the comments for a particular node, and also, you know, those nasty links that were so hard to edit and theme that were included at the bottom there. And now we can say, here. I need to scoot over just a little bit so you can see this whole comment. There we go. We hide the comments and links now so that we can render them later. So the order of these lines is important because first we're going to hide the comments, which is inside this render element, and hide the links, which is inside the content variable element. And then we're going to render and print the content. And because we've hidden those things, it's going to go and theme everything except for the bits that we just hid, and then make it a string. And then just 2 lines later, now we're going to render the links. And now we're going to render the comments. And this is a way for you to move fields around inside your node TPL. Really easy. All you need to do is basically hide a particular field and then print it later inside your TPL file. So this is, conceptually, this is the biggest change in Drupal 7 theming. These render and print and show, and do I have a question over here? Yeah. The question was, what if you wanted to put the comments before the content, which is a great example, but not actually really extremely useful real life situation. Maybe, you know, if there was a site for trolls, they might like to have the comments first. So the question was, if we print the comments first, do we also have to hide it later? So the answer is, as soon as you print something, as soon as you render a part of the render element and then print it out, it's not going to double render. So if at the big top here you said print render content comments, and then we came down a couple lines here, we could just print render content, and it wouldn't include the comments again because it's already done it once. Yeah. So you wouldn't need the hide content comments. There's a corresponding show function, which would be useful maybe if you wanted to double print something. It's there for completeness. I'm not really sure the actual use case of it. Yeah. There we go. Thank you. This is why we have, you know, a great and vibrant community. So the answer here was, you've got a form and you want the submit buttons at the top and bottom. Well, duh. Yeah, okay. Of course you want to double print it then. Yeah. So why do we have this weird HTML.tpl file? The answer to that is because we wanted to be able to do the same render for some variables inside our page TPL and show and hide. We wanted to give that capability to the page TPL. And there's a sort of a problem with the page TPL in that at the very top of the page TPL in D6, it would print out all the styles and all the JavaScript. And because we had these sort of fancy render elements that we were printing later in the page, let's say you had a view, like when views gets ported to D7. Let's say you had a view inside this render element. Views can add JavaScript and add CSS depending on what's in the view. So the JavaScript and the CSS is kind of attached to the actual render element. And when you render it, the render API goes and it goes, oh, look, they've added some styles. I'm going to go and add those to the styles. And the problem with the way we have D6's page TPL is that we've already printed out the styles in CSS. It's too late to modify it. And that's why we had to split it up into a separate file. So we render the page TPL with render elements for the page content, with render elements for all of the regions, which means that you can, for example, modify any of the blocks inside a preprocess function because they're render elements. And in fact, it's required now that any module has to, when it creates a block, it has to create it as a render element. So you can do some preprocess block functions and modify the actual render element and change the way it actually gets styled or change the content or whatever you want to do to it if you have enough PHP knowledge to do it. And I admit that this is an advanced feature. But it's super powerful. So I think we are getting near the end here, which is good because we've only got like 10 minutes left. Granular thing. Oh, one last thing. Hook page alter. One person knows about it. He's excited. I am too. Hook page alter. How many people here know about form alter functions? Quite a few of you. So if form alter is basically, it allows a module to alter how a form is put together before it actually gets sort of built and printed out, right? And sometimes in D6, you wanted to like move some stuff around inside the form, and you couldn't do it in your theme. And, I mean, and you wanted to move some stuff around purely for stylistic reasons, right? But you couldn't do it in your theme. You had to go and create a custom module for it. So I forgot to put a bullet point here. In D7, any alter function in all of Drupal core can be included inside your theme's template.php file. So if you want to alter a form, you can inside your theme. When we committed this, you know, WebChick thought a long time about this. She said, I really weighed this and gave it some heavy thought. And I eventually decided this made sense, because if you want to have clean separation of, you know, both your business logic and your, you know, your display logic, it makes sense to allow themes to do these alters, and in order to have the display logic of modifying the form inside the display layer, inside the theme. And she said, please don't be evil. We can do any alter. There's no sort of blacklist or whitelist of what special alter functions we can run. We get them all. We could run hook query alter, which would change database queries. Please, God, don't do that. There's no reason for a theme to do it, but you could. So don't be evil. Which brings me to hook page alter. Hook page alter is it's an alter function that is run right before the page actually gets themed. So this is a step that happens right before the page TPL, for example, is actually run. And Drupal now has this giant page render element that it creates. So it goes and it looks at the main content for a particular page request, and it puts it inside the main content block, and it fills up all of your regions as part of this render element. It fills them all up with arrays. And let me just show you exactly this in action here for you to be able to get a good example of what this does. So it has this giant array, page array, which includes all of your regions, and inside each of those regions is all of your blocks, which includes your main content. And the hook page alter allows you to change anything in that render element before page TPL is actually run. So what kind of things could you do? Again, you can be evil. I've chosen not to be evil. So I will zoom. Okay. This is just some demo code that I've whipped up. Basically, I'm checking right here. This is hook page alter. This is a D7 theme. D7 page alter. The page variable is this giant render element. And the first thing we're doing is some sanity checking. We're making sure that page content is the actual region on our page. We have a content region in every page TPL. Then we're looking for the system_main, which is your main page's content. That's the name of that block in Drupal 7. We're looking at the list of nodes that are in there, and this isn't the most, we're specifically looking for node 20 in this example. So if node 20 is your main page content, then we're going to go ahead and do this other stuff here. And the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to move the field, the image field, out of our node 20 and stick it at the beginning of this sidebar second. So array unshift is a way to add things at the front of an array. So we've got this, sidebar second is an array that includes all of our blocks in order. And if we want to move something to the top of our region. We'd use array on shift to pop it onto, or not pop it, sorry, to place it on the top of our array. And then, of course, we also have to remove it, because all we've done is made a copy here at this point. We also have to remove it from where it actually is right now. So we're going to go in and remove it by unsetting it. So we've moved it and we've unset it. And now I'm going to go and show you. I'm zoomed. Number 20. Let this sink in for a moment. Our main content is in, this left area of the page, except for this field, which we just moved over into a completely different region. This is possible in D6 if you're a super PHP ninja, but this is a hell of a lot easier in D7. And you can sort of break the sort of grid that you're almost placed into with our regions and move your content around, and move the fields and anything you want, into any region by using these techniques. This is super powerful and is super cool, and this is why this is the last bullet on my presentation. So I'm going to open it up to questions. There we go. Do I have the presentation online? I will put it online. I usually put my slides on slideshare.net. So if you go to slideshare.net/JohnAlbin, it'll be there. Okay, it's not there yet, but I'll put it up there. Todd. D7's philosophy on when you should use a theme function versus when you should use a template. It's basically the same as it was in D6, which is the sort of in this sort of tree of building of the different sort of granular pieces of your site. So like you have your links sort of at the bottom here, and comments are aggregated into comment wrappers, into nodes, and nodes into regions and blocks and regions. We like to keep the top of that tree, page TPL at the very top here, or HTML.tpl at the very top. We like to keep the top of that tree because those are the things that are most likely to be overridden. We like to keep those as template files. And then at the lower end of our tree, then we have a decision. What should we do, themes or we should do functions? And basically it becomes a performance issue. So anything that's run a heck of a lot of times, like menu links, when you have a giant menu tree, you don't want to have a menu links be a template because it's run like 80 times on your site, and it's bad for performance. Theme functions run faster than templates, but templates are easier than theme functions for themers. So it's this balance we have to take. More questions. I know you have more questions. Really? I must have just completely fried your brain. Okay. The question was, is the default D7 core themes and other the Zen theme doing anything with HTML5? And the answer is that HTML5, if you've been following it closely, has been changing a lot. It kind of fluctuates a lot as far as like one time is doing this and then it kind of changes a little bit like that. So it's a little bit too wobbly for us to have done a core theme using it. But I know for a fact that there's going to be contrib themes that do HTML5 stuff, definitely. And hopefully the spec will sort of calm down and we'll get something in for D8. So the default right now is still XHTML. And I would like to point out that we have the Stark theme, we have 7 theme, we have Garland. But there's sort of a hole there too. We have some additional time to put some themes into core. One of the choice candidates here is actually the Bartik theme, which my D7 theme is actually a sub-theme of the Bartik theme. Right now it's in the contrib space, so if you go to project/Bartik, and we're working on cleaning it up and getting it ready and committable for D7. And there are also 2 other themes which are candidates right now. basically limited down to these three. So it's Bartik, Busy Theme, and Corolla. So those, if you want to help out and see either of those or any of those themes, get it into core. There's still some time, but we got to do it quick. We got to get these cleaned up. There's going to be a Bartik sprint, code sprint, to help get this stuff done tomorrow at like 9:45, and then again on Thursday. Why not Zen? So this, like I said, the Zen has a philosophy that it's a nice, good foundation to start with. And one of our core ideas is that we wanted to get cores templates be a good starting point. So that was already our sort of philosophy of trying to get any TPL that's inside core should be good enough as a starting point, which is the same sort of philosophy of Zen. So the Stark theme uses all of the default things, so it's kind of like Zen in that way. Really, because we had this philosophy, the motivations for putting Zen into D7, they weren't as strong. The reasons for doing it weren't as strong because we were doing this thing inside Core's templates. So, what was the question? Am I going to still maintain Zen? Zen has already been ported to D7. Yeah. And in fact, I've built a production D7 site that you'll see in the keynote tomorrow. I'm not going to be presenting it, but the Drupalcon Chicago people are, and you'll get to see a Zen theme on a real live site tomorrow. Over here. Oh, theme developer. What about theme developer module? Theme developer module is still there. I think that they want a new maintainer because they're like, oh, we did it, and we're So they're not really motivated to keep. It's going to get ported. No, it has already been ported. I'm pretty sure to D7, but they're not super motivated to do extra stuff to it. So if anybody wants to help out that, I know that they're looking for people. Question over there. So yeah, you noticed inside the HTML.tpl file there's a page top and a page bottom variable. Those are variables that they're special use cases for putting the admin black bar thingy that I keep forgetting the name for. And then the page bottom one is for like JavaScripts that have to be included after all the content. So those are special case variables. You're probably never ever going to have to. Don't remove them if you overwrite HTML.tpl. The modules developers will get very, very mad at you if you do that. But basically, there's nothing really useful in there for us. Are there required regions? As far as I know, there's not. There's suggested regions, there's default regions, but the only required regions are the page top and page bottom, which are already inside HTML.tpl. So there's nothing really required. You have to have some regions in your page TPL inside your .info file, just the same way in D6. So I think that actually I need to get out of here. Thank you so much. It's been a blast.